review.
Would it be helpful for us to actually be referring to the application that you sent us by email?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Right, thank you. All right, they may proceed.
Good morning, Meg Lamb. I'm just going to give a little very brief overview of the legal requirements for the application. The law does require certain contact information and demographic information be collected from each applicant, along with details about employment history, partisan activities they may have been a part of, any type of community service activities, that sort of thing. And then there are a number of disqualifiers based on past partisan activities. And so those are going to be in the application with a yes-no option. And so, we just tried to really follow what the law required, set it out as clearly as possible. And Lily is going to show you the application so you can see how that looks in real life.
Good morning, Lily Jones. Looking at the draft proposed application, this is designed according to the statutory requirements that Meg just outlined. We start with instructions emphasizing that every section has to be fully answered in order for the application to be considered complete. We define a few relevant terms that come up in the application, and then starting on the following page, we ask for general information from the applicant, all of the specific things that the statute requires to have on the application. Following that, we ask for education background, and then the next page asks for employment history for the past 3 years. And the next 3 pages require applicants to indicate separately for 2020, 2019, and 2018 whether they were registered to vote, their preferred party affiliation, if any, and any history they have of holding partisan or political office or other relevant political work. So these are all worded based on the language of the statute, but separated out by year to ensure that we get complete information for every single year. Finally, on the page after that, we have a series of yes/no questions that are the key questions for eligibility. So eligible applicants will have to answer yes to those first 3 questions about residency, voter registration, and having voted in 2 of the last 3 general elections. Following that, there are 11 questions that an eligible applicant will have to answer no to relating to partisan or political office or employment. The final page is the signature page. We have an option to attach references and an option to submit electronically or print and submit by other means.
And I'll jump in here since Lily mentioned references. One thing the law does allow is for you all to require applicants to submit 3 letters of recommendation, either from individuals or organizations they've been involved in. That's a decision you all would need to make today, but we can save that for later in the meeting. It is optional.
Well, could I ask, just starting at the beginning of the application, Ms. Jones or whoever this should, so it says instructions for completing this application, and that I think is it's either page 2 or 3. And to your point, it says, please follow all instructions for completing this form as incomplete applications cannot be processed. One of the things I wondered is whether we needed to make that in bold or a bigger font, because with the short, I'm just interested in feedback from all of you, but with the short turnaround, I'm assuming that's an immediate disqualifier by the staff if the people haven't completed something. We don't have the time for you to send it back and say, you didn't answer this question, correct? I mean, I just wonder if we would be serving the applicants better to make sure they understood that you get one shot at this.
We will be having to immediately disqualify any applications that aren't complete. So it would be important for us to emphasize that, and we can make that more obvious.
Do you all share that concern, or was that not something you want to have the staff emphasize?
I agree with you that we should make that clear because there isn't really time to, cure any defects if somebody hasn't filled it out. I have a question though that has to do more with the order. You go, and it may just be the way the statute's worded, but you go through each of the 3 years with all those questions and the disqualifying ones. And then you have the yes/no questions, which basically if you answer yes to those, you're disqualified by the statute. And I was wondering why it wasn't done with like those first and saying if you answer yes to any of these, you're not eligible. Was there a reason to do it this way first?
I'll answer that question. You were correct in assuming that it was because we followed the order of the statute and how the provisions were laid out. But I do agree that would make sense to switch that order around. We do need to ask for both. And one of the reasons we're using the yes/no questions is to allow our staff when processing to not have to make judgment calls about, is this really a partisan activity or not? So it's going to be some self-reporting, but I think it is a great idea to switch those around.
So do you need a vote from us, or is it just us advising you that there's consensus that these changes be made sufficient?
I think we do need a specific vote on approval of the application and any changes that you all want to have made.
Well, is it simpler for us? I mean, we've just come upon a change that I think we would have consensus about. Is it simpler for Judge Alpert to make that motion and we vote, or please direct me as to what makes your life easier?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, if I may suggest, what we can do is, we will keep a record of the changes that you all asked for us to make, and then at the very end, we can entertain a motion to approve the application as amended or as changed, so that we just have one.
Thank
vote.
You. And
to whom have also going to vote on the letters of recommendation issue. So
yes. Well, to whom are you delegating the task to keep up with this discussion?
Myself.
We're all nerds, so we're all taking notes.
Yes. My staff doesn't really ask me to take good notes, so they're all taking notes too. So
okay. All right. So we have 3 things so far. An emphasis on the disqualification if it's incomplete, the references, which we haven't had any discussion about, and then an agreement that the order will be flipped. So if you're immediately disqualified right up front, you don't have to fill out the other stuff. All right, so can we have a discussion before we move on as to what the pleasure of the committee is with regard to the letters of reference?
I have given, this is William Andrews, I've given this some thought. And of course, like any type of decision like this, there's pros and cons to either way you go. But I sort of come down on the side of, or I'm leaning towards requiring the 3 letters, because on just a standard application, an applicant may not stand out, but their references that are submitted on their behalf may reflect more of their true character. And while it's a bit more reading for us in the long run, I think it would give us a better idea of who the applicant is and a little more of their background.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to weigh in?
Yes, Judge, if I may, this is Larry Kirksey. I agree with what my colleague has said about requiring the 3 letters of recommendation. I think the way that I came down with it is very similar to what Judge Andrews has said. But in addition to that, I think one of the reasons that this process has been established by both our General Assembly as well as
Excuse me, everyone. I'm just joining the group. David Pugh.
Good morning, Judge Pugh.
Oh, I tell you, I'm not a master science on how to turn my computer on, so I've had a lot of problems.
Well, we're just glad you've joined us. And the discussion now, we're going over the application. And if you can pull that up, we have thus far had consensus that The application will be amended to emphasize that incomplete applications will be disqualified. We've rearranged the order so that some of the yes/no questions that are immediate disqualifiers will be up front in the application. And we are now discussing the wisdom of still requesting 3 references. Judge Andrews is speaking in favor of that, and Judge Kersey was just in the process of speaking in favor of it and telling us his reasons. So, Judge Kersey.
Thank you, and welcome aboard, Judge Pugh. I share your handicap as you described it. I was saying in support of what Judge Andrews had said about requiring 3 letters of recommendation is that my thinking had been that I think one of the reasons that this process is now in place with us having a redistricting commission, both from the standpoint of the General Assembly as well as the vote that was taken at the last general election, is for there to be some additional transparency and input as it would be, and in the sense of transparency to maybe bring things more out of the shadows, if you will. And letters of recommendation, I think, might help in making sure that there was a little more light on what was going on. So that's where I would come down in favor of having, as it be required, 3 letters of recommendation.
Thank you. Judge Alper? You're muted.
I agree with everything that was said. The only, I think we should require them. My only small concern was, are we in some way limiting people who might otherwise apply and be appropriate for consideration by not having those letters of recommendation, by requiring the letters of recommendation and someone can get 1 but not 3. I'm thinking of the wide swath that we want the applications to come from all areas of the Commonwealth, all, ages, races, income levels, et cetera, education levels. And is there any concern that there would be a lessening of the ability to reach out to everyone who might possibly be interested and want to apply by requiring 3 letters of recommendation?
Well, isn't the wording, because that's certainly with the short turnaround is a valid concern. It says attach any references. I mean, we're not requiring 3, are we? We're just being open to considering up to 3.
So the law itself says that the committee may require applicants to submit 3 letters of recommendation from individuals or organizations.
Right. So is it up to 3?
No, it doesn't say that. It says the committee may require applicants to submit 3 letters.
Okay.
I mean, it would be nice if it was 2 even, but that's not what the wording the statute says.
We all know about statutory construction.
Can I say this to the group? Look, everything is time of essence, what we're doing here. Everything is time of essence. I looked at, and I'm sure everyone has looked at, the application itself. It's something that I would not like to fill out, okay? Because it's a lot of information that you're putting out there. That's number 1. Number 2, overall, I don't see, if you answer all of those questions in the application, I don't see why we need a letter of reference, not to mention 2. I just don't think it's necessary. Period. I think that the weeding out process after the applications are received you'll be able to key on those people who will meet all of that criteria, which I think is sufficient. I could understand a letter of reference if you're trying to get into a college or institution, trying to get a job or something. But this is something where people are going to volunteer their time and efforts to try to come up with some solution as far as what type of district is going to be conformed. So that's my position on it. That's what my answer would be. No need for the letters of reference, period.
All right, so does someone wish to make a motion or respond to any of those comments?
This is Larry Kirksey, and I understand exactly what has been said by Judge Pugh, and I've given that consideration both before this meeting as well as having heard his concern as it's worded. I don't think. First off, I don't think the application, with all due respect, is that burdensome of a process. If in fact someone is interested in committing themselves to participating in the process, I don't see it being that intrusive or that much of a difficulty. And I would share with Judge Pugh, I wouldn't fill it out, but that's because I wouldn't want to serve in that capacity, frankly. But insofar as letters of recommendation, I think we need to see those. And I wish that they'd given us an option of less than 3, but I don't see the statute allowing it. And I mean, these don't have to be 2-page letters. It can be something very, a paragraph of a letter for that matter, as it would be, and that's fine. I think it's an important piece of an evaluation for us, as well as those that will be reviewing them and sending us their list or shorter list of them as is. So that's my comment. And as far as the procedure for now bringing this up, I mean, we can bring it up at this stage or carve it away from what may be the consensus already at the end of the discussion in the application, as it would be.
I guess my concern, Mr. Wade was going to keep a list, and we had consensus on the first 2. We do not have consensus on that one. And so I don't think we can vote en masse.
Well, I was saying maybe separate that one out from the others, as it would be too.
Yes,
But if you would like a motion, I mean, I'll make a motion at this time. If you would like for me to make a motion.
Mr. Wade, I would. I think that's going to keep it simpler. And Judge Kirksey, if you would do so, that would be well received.
Oh, I move that the application require applicants to submit 3 letters of recommendation.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
And that's Judge Andrews.
William Andrews.
All right.
Madam Chair, I can call the roll on that vote, and the motion is to have the application require 3 letters of reference. So I will call the roll. Judge Pugh?
No.
And Judge Pugh, earlier we said we were both visually recording it and audio. So if it's aye, we're instructed to have a thumbs up. If it's no, we have to show visually a thumbs down. Thank you. And for the record, his thumb is down.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Judge Alper?
No.
Judge Andrews?
Yes.
Judge Kirksey?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yes, the motion carries. So there will be a requirement for 3 letters of recommendation on the application.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Lamb or Ms. Jones, are there other points to go over or where you require input from us?
Not on the application itself. We'll get to the next thing for you all to approve in a minute.
May I interrupt? This is William Andrews. I have one other question about the application, and it's something that just sort of jumped out at me. At the very end of the application, and I'm reading, by signing this application, you agree that the answers given are truthful and complete to the best of your knowledge. Many applications also require, when you're dealing with a governmental function, they add the words under the penalty of perjury of law or words to that effect. Do we need that? Does it give the person a little more solemnity when they sign their name and know that, listen, this better be truthful, or do we not need that? I just bring it up as a question. I had no strong feelings one way or the other.
I can answer that question. We actually did discuss that as our team, like whether we should have some sort of penalty of perjury. The way we read the law, though, we didn't see that we had the authority to do so. You all are former judges, so if you feel differently, of course, please speak up. But there's nothing in the text of the law that says this could be under penalty of perjury, or that they have to swear or give an oath or anything.
All right. Anything else on the application itself before we move on? Judge Kirk?
Yes, thank you. Question of the staff members about this. I noticed that you followed to a T the requirements of Section 30-394 when it came to the application, and it is right down the line to what was required, and I commend you for doing so. One thing I'm wondering about is when it comes to the employment history aspect of the application, the statute was fairly devoid of any specification of what comprised employment history. And you covered in the proposed application, name of employer, company address, job title, dates employed. To me, there was an area that was missing that very often in my life I would see on an employment history, and that was the question of reasons for departure or reasons for change. Was that given any consideration in the process of what would be included on the employment history?
That it was not discussed, so I would leave that to you all to decide.
Seems to me to be an important area.
Is that something that that you're willing to proceed with the motion on?
I opened it for discussion with my colleagues. I mean, it just seemed to be a point that was missed. And to me, it would, if I was evaluating somebody, I would like to know why they moved away from one to the other. Very often it's for, betterment of the person in their position and growth, as it would be. But sometimes you find someone who's left for other reasons. Judge
Kirksey, could you direct us to the language in the statute?
If I look at Section 394, and I'm sure that Meg and Brooks can probably find it more quickly than I, but I think it's like
Well, how about under A?
Under A,
Rule 4, where it says employment history, and unless the staff can direct us to more specific requirements, then we can just talk about how helpful or unhelpful that information would be.
I think that's exactly where it is.
So if you go to the second paragraph of subsection A, there's the Romanet 4.
Yes, but it just says basically employment history.
Right. So, the beginning of the sentence is that they have to disclose for the period of 3 years immediately preceding the application period, then their employment history.
But in other words, it's quite open. We could require it or not.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then is there a motion, Judge Kirksey, on that?
Yes, I would move that the employment history aspect of the application include the reasons for an individual no longer being in that employment. And that would be my motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Judge Alper seconded it. Any further discussion about that? All right.
I'd like to know this. It wasn't brought up, but the purpose for asking that question that the judge wants, Judge Kirksey wants, is to find out the reason for the person's changing employment or leaving employment That's my understanding. The overall question, I, I don't know whether or not it's helpful or hurtful to the extent that, I hate to say this, but what difference does it make if, in fact, you're getting people volunteering to go through this process? And again, we're talking about time is of the essence. Is that going to be if they're terminated by the employer, and you can't, the employer, if he or she has in a sense, they're not going to put the reasons why they were terminated, the purpose of a lawsuit or whatever. So as a personnel matter. So I don't know whether, I would give that information insofar as to be a member of the commission. I just don't see it. So that's my observation.
Are these applications going to be public record? Well, and I know there's a lot of records, citations and freedom of information citations in the statute. Will these, as people are sending them in, be part of the public record where anyone, for example, as Judge Pugh pointed out, if someone left a job for whatever reason and they're in the process of a fight with their prior employer, is that something that could be discoverable by the prior employer?
As far as public record, the applications and the documentation that might be submitted or will be submitted are public record for those persons who were on this list of 16 submitted by an individual legislative leader. So if we get 1,000 applications, they're not all public record, but if someone makes it to that stage, it does become public record.
Okay, that's so there is some concern that if someone made it to that stage, they would that information would be public.
I think one of the things that I'm wondering isn't a theme for what we're discussing is that we are anticipating. I hope we have